Hey, Gabriel Blake.
Hey, Gabriel Jose.
Where are we today?
We are sheltering in place, not just because of our mayor, but now our governor, who says we
Mm-hmm.
can't leave our homes for anything but essential business.
I mean, you can still just go out and walk. It's the mental health that you get from just being outdoors is still recognized as an essential business.
And this time, at least gyms are considered essential, which I agree with that helps mental health with people exercising. What I don't agree with is tanning salons being essential, which I don't understand.
But in any case, actually, gyms is only if they are outdoors, not indoors.
But tanning salons, that is essential. Indoors, next to other people, in closed spaces.
Wow.
Gotta keep that
Yeah.
bronze glow.
Yep. You want to be glamorous if you go to the ICU. All right. So, what did we watch today?
Well, I'm a little bit unprepared for that because I don't know the year. We watched the 2001 masterpiece?
Okay.
The Spanish film, directed by the same director as one of Jose's favorite movies of all time. Is that accurate? Or just a movie you really, really like?
It's a movie that I really, really like. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is The Lovers of the Arctic Circle. Yeah. So Julio Medem is his name.
How do you say his last name?
Medem? Yeah.
Medem.
Medem.
So he directed that film, Lovers of the Arctic Circle, 4 years before this, and this came out in 2001.
Yeah, like 3 years before this. Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, fun fact from Jose and my friendship, we watched that movie together like 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And you don't remember anything of it?
I really don't. I apologize. I remember the experience of going to your apartment. You had brought the DVD from the trip to Spain you had just been on. We watched it. I don't know if I was tired. Maybe I was drunk. I don't know.
Maybe both. Yeah, so this movie, Sex and Lucia, is considered like a sequel, like a spiritual sequel to The Lovers of the Arctic Circle.
I didn't know that. Did you read the New York Times review? Is that where?
No, no. I mean, it was famous when it was released because on the interviews he was saying that he was connecting because the ending of The Lovers of the Arctic Circle is pretty sad and pretty hopeless, and he wanted to just start a movie exactly from that point of hopelessness and just taking it to more of a hopeful future.
All right, I can see that.
Yep. But yeah, so I pick up this. I chose this movie because it's a movie that I really like from an aesthetic perspective. When we're talking about enduring love, I think that you were mentioning about like how well directed that first scene is Good Glow, and I think that from my perspective, I was thinking about like he's trying to do something poetic with this, like just looking at a poetic kind of way, almost if you were looking at an illustration in a child book about like just five guys like just hanging from a balloon that is like flying off. And I thought that someone that is it used to be like pretty famous about like a good photography directing, it was Julio Medem. That is like his stories are hit or miss, but at least he's like pretty popular. As a friend of mine used to define it, is that he's better as a how do you say, like desktop background composer than as a cinema director.
And so for those of us who are ugly Americans and don't know Julio Medem, what else has he done that we might have seen?
So there was a movie that it was for the longest time on Netflix that was called A Room in Rome, I think. There were like two women that they have like a sordid affair while they're on vacation in Rome. But the thing is that I don't think that he has ever had like too much international impact. Is that he was popular, but the first film, I think that it was Cows, then he did The Red Squirrel, then he did Soil, I don't know exactly how it was translated. I think that Tierra, it was like the most popular one. but I don't know how it was translated here. If it was Earth. Yeah. Earth is like the most. I think that it was like the most popular back then. I don't know if there is anything else that he released afterwards. Roommate Rome was like for a very long time on Netflix, so maybe some people watch it, but maybe not.
I do think Sex and Lucia is the film of his that got the most playtime in America. It made almost $8 million in American theaters, which is, for an independent foreign film, it's substantial. The studio that produced this is the European arm of Warner Brothers, so that probably played a part. They wanted to introduce it to American audiences, but yeah, looking at his IMDb page, he even had a 2015 movie, Mama, that starred Penelope Cruz, and that didn't make it. All right. And then The Tree of Blood was his most recent. It was 2018.
Yeah, I have to say that I would be curious to watch some of his more recent movies, for the last 5 years, because, well, I would develop a bit more on this, but I think that his style on this movie, on Sex and Lucia, is pretty from the time frame that it was shot.
This film felt very 90s to me.
Yeah.
But I did feel, based on my emotional reaction to the previous film we watched together, Lovers of the Arctic Circle, I felt like this was an improvement. But maybe that's not fair to say because I don't remember the film that much.
Yeah. So what is this movie about, in any case?
That's not possible. You can't give a synopsis of this film. The film follows Lucia, who's a waitress in a restaurant, and she is the girlfriend of a writer named Lorenzo. And the film starts with them having a tense phone call. Is that right?
Yeah.
He's devolved a little bit. He's having she doesn't know what's happening, but it's like mental health issues, or clearly he's depressed. And it seems like he commits suicide.
He got an accident. He got into an accident. He walked into the street.
But he left a suicide note.
He was saying a bit more, is like, I'm leaving. Please just remember me, and please just forgive me. That's the last thing that I ask you.
Yeah, it's unclear. The police call. She's so terrified of bad advice that she just refuses to. She answers, but then she hangs up, and she runs away to an island that played a big part in Lorenzo's life, where he met a woman 6 years earlier, and he had the best sex. Well, it was the best sex of her life. He never said it was that great. And so he had always spoken to Lucia about this island.
He actually does. He actually said later, because Lucia asked Lorenzo, was like is this the best sex that you ever had? And then they actually started like comparing, and I said, okay, you cannot compare in a fair kind of way, like hot sex that you have with a stranger that you're never going to see again, and sex that you have with your partner that is wild.
Yeah. So she runs to that island in a terrible state. She thinks her partner's dead. We go to a flashback 6 years earlier where he's on vacation, and say the name of these islands, which are incredibly beautiful in Spain.
Baleares. The Baleares Islands. Yeah, they're in the middle of the Mediterranean. Yeah.
So we see his intense, passionate lovemaking in the sea with a different woman, Elena. They part to never speak again, not having even exchanged names, but just a few hints about who they are. Elena got pregnant. So we see her in a loveless marriage, I assume. They never say they're married, but she's with somebody who can't even answer the phone because he's busy at work.
Yeah.
She leaves him pregnant and also goes back to this island, and she spends... Oh, no.
No, she goes to Madrid. She used to live in Valencia, and she goes to Madrid actually searching for him.
Yeah. So she goes to Madrid. She never finds him. This is where there's so much here. I don't know that I can give a full synopsis.
Okay.
I mean, so at this point, Lorenzo, while still partnered with Lucia, finds out about his daughter, finds out that he can access the daughter, who is with the au pair, the nanny, every day at a park. He goes and starts to build a relationship not only with his daughter, but with the babysitter, whose mother is a retired porn actress. She has a very incestuous thoughts about her mother. Her mother gets her off. Also, Lorenzo's a writer, and he's writing a novel at this time, and we don't know if what we're seeing is part of his novel, what actually happened, what he's trying to make up for his past sins, with changing the narrative of what he's writing. Please fill in the gaps, because there's no way to explain in a straightforward narrative fashion what this film is about at that point.
So usually when we're watching one of these stories, like shortcuts that we were like mentioning a moment ago, before we started recording, it's a bit more of the magic or the game of those kind of movies of cross stories. It's about like just figuring out which character is connected to which of the character and just drawing the line, like the 7 degrees of separation about like how everyone is connected. But in this case, it's like the other way around, is that they actually are like just driving each other closer, and it almost feels like at the end there are only like 6 characters across the whole movie. They only saw like the faces of 6 people, because everyone that is there is that they end up like just bound to each other sooner or later. It's like even like the boyfriend, because the au pair that lives with her mother, she also lives with her mother's boyfriend, and her mother's boyfriend shows later in the movie again. That is a bit more like, why? That it almost feels like actually this island and this story that they had together is like just bringing everyone together, like just trying to collide, with each other. So, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so the first half of the movie, I think I described. The second half of the movie ends up with the 2 women on this island that's this kind of heavenly paradise. It's stripped of color in the film. They're both completely wounded, Elena, from the death of her daughter, and... You
hadn't said that actually the daughter dies.
Yeah, because I don't know how to fit it into that like messy middle. But to describe a second, please, go ahead.
What I was going to say is like actually it looks like the writer, what is his name, Lorenzo, he gets a bit obsessed with the writing of the story of the au pair, the mother, and the boyfriend, and he started like just getting involved with the au pair. So he started like just having some kind of affair that the movie never really like addressed, at any point about like, oh, you actually had an affair with Elena. I don't know. We don't know. What was his name? The au pair?
Belen, yeah, B-E-L-E.
Yeah, because the actress is Elena. It's called Elena, but Elena's character is a different actress. That is Najwa Nimri. That is the girl from Quien te cantará, who will sing to you. So the thing, yep.
You're right.
Yep.
And this movie reminded me a lot about that film, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. So the thing is like Lorenzo starts having like this kind of getting closer to her. Her also like just shows an interest for him, and they plan to meet up at the house of the mother of the girl that she looks out for. So basically at Elena's house.
And Lorenzo's daughter's house.
Exactly, yeah. So, but no one knows that Luna, that is the name of the daughter, is her daughter. So we see for just a glimpse, Lorenzo sees Elena just for a second about like heading out and just says like, well, the au pair wants the house, let's just make it a favor because they don't have a place to actually just fuck. And what they're fucking, after having like a very beautiful scene when Lorenzo is reading a tale to Luna, is that he's going to be like having sex with Belen, and then the house dog suddenly attacks the daughter and
kills
her. Yep.
Mauls daughter and kills her.
Yep. We don't really know the motivation because that dog has been there forever. Is that we only have like a weird scene of Lorenzo like just closing the door when the daughter is there.
We do know that the dog did not belong to Elena. It belonged to her current boyfriend. As they're leaving the house, she says, "You're so much like your dog." So maybe the dog just wasn't as familiar with the kid.
I don't know. I think that part it always feels weird to me about like, look, that dog. This probably is like the house of the soccer player that is the boyfriend. Is that this probably is like your house or the house that you guys have in common or whatever. That this dog is always here. Is that so I don't get this part about like just attacking the daughter. It's like just so weird to me because it's not like just barking at everyone. He barks at Lorenzo when he gets in the house. But in any case, I digress. The dog kills the daughter, and then Lorenzo actually goes into this trauma spiral, out of control, like just more or less self-destructing, like just feeling worse and worse about himself, but he doesn't want to share that pain with Lucia.
Yes, so that incredibly serious trauma seriously damages the relationship between Lucia and Lorenzo. Of course, it completely ruins Elena. Elena runs to the island and picks up a life where she can pretend like she can forget everything. And ultimately, Lucia ends up at this like quote unquote guest house, which is like the most magical place I've ever seen. I want to go there immediately.
Just quick question. Did it remind you, that house, did it remind you of the base of operation that they had in Life Aquatic?
No, but now that you say it, yes.
Is that the house, when I saw it on the screen, it's like, is that the same house? It's like, no, the thing is like it's Mediterranean, and it's like probably they went with Italy on Life Aquatic. But it's like it's the same style. It's like that's pretty like common.
And while I was watching this film, I was like sending questions nonstop to Jose. Tell me about the island. What's going on? Can I go there? Because they look completely like it's paradise. Nobody's there. The water's warm. Of course, you told me it's a little bit different. There's lots of like drunk tourists there. So
yeah, and there are a lot of hotels. That you may still find like something. Small houses, but they're not going to be Airbnbs or bed and breakfast nowadays. And if they are, they're probably going to be like just full of completely drunk people at just partying.
So Lucia and Elena end up at the same guest house. They don't know that they're connected at all. There's one other guest at the guest house, and it is the boyfriend of Belen's
mother. Yeah.
So they're just kind of there, the three of them, and there's all these connecting points that they're starting to put together, like somehow they're connected through Lorenzo, through Belen. And I think finally we got through the synopsis. Is that...
Well, sure. We covered like most of it, like chronologically, and then, we can say that basically, and this is one of the problems that I have with this movie, there is a bit more of not the MacGuffin, but a bit more like the starting point is cheating. There is basically Lucia leaves Madrid like from 1 minute to the next. Is that there is not enough time for her to hear the whole complete story about Lorenzo being still alive. So at the end, Lorenzo, that he was in a coma, he goes back to life like maybe 2 months later. We don't know exactly what is the time, but it doesn't feel like it has been years. It has been like just a very brief period of time. And he flies to the island. And he just meet up with them. Oh, also something else is like actually Elena and Lorenzo are talking online without Elena knowing that it's Lorenzo. And actually he writes a tale for her to actually just cheer him up after the death of her daughter.
Which is very similar to the novel that he had been writing.
Exactly.
About taking all of Belen's incestuous and freaky fantasies and putting it in there.
Yep.
It's all so interconnected and bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, as this was my pick, what do you think of it? Did you like it?
So during Cyber Monday or Black Friday, the dispensaries in California were giving out all of these free mystery gifts if you bought something. And last night I took one of these mystery gifts and it was super strong. And so I watched like 30 minutes and I had to keep asking my husband, now who is this lady? Where did this baby come from? I had to stop watching it last night because I was so interested in the film and I understood that I couldn't follow it. So I got up at like 9 this morning and I immediately started watching the whole film from the beginning. And I tell you that story because I found it interesting. The story is compelling, 100%. I think the cinematography is gorgeous. I think the acting is outstanding.
I was going to be asking you, what did you think of the main actress, the one that plays Lucia?
I didn't like her, but I liked Elena.
Oh, yeah.
a lot. I thought Elena was just incredible, and I think she won some sort of best newcomer prize from
The Goya? I mean, I thought that she had already. Actually, Elena is like the main actress in The Lovers of the Arctic Circle.
Okay.
It's like, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just saying there was a lot that I liked, but if you stop to think a little bit,
Oh yeah,
there were like major plot holes, and it doesn't quite make sense. And I think the filmmakers leaned on the idea way too much that, oh, he's writing a novel, we can show what's in his head, what he's writing, to just kind of ride away some of these, well, very long issues.
yeah,
I thought it was interesting to watch this right after Atonement, which also centers around a writer who's trying to achieve something via words that is very profound. And because of that comparison, I felt like
this is softer. This falls softer.
yeah, it's not as profound, it's not as deep. This is melodrama.
And that's fair. I won't tell you no on that. I partially agree with you. I think that I love the Lovers of the Arctic Circle, and I think that it's also a melodrama. But it's also, you remember there was like this kid that he was in love with this girl, and he was like sending the flying, like the paper planes, and then at the end they actually meet because the parents fall in love and they get married. But they start having like this kind of affair in between them. So we see them since they are like 10 years old until they are like 20 something. And it's like when they say that we cannot be together, it's like we're brothers, already we are not like linked by blood, it will destroying our parents. It's like one of them moves Anna, that is Najwa Nimri's, Elena's character. Sorry. The actress that plays Elena here, that is Najwa Nimri, that is the one from Who Will Sing to You, is that she moves to the Arctic Circle and she lives there. And then the other character that is not here, I don't remember what is his name of the actor, but the character was called Otto, is that he actually just flies there for meeting her up. And is that they never really meet up again because she gets run out by a car when they're about to just meet each other, So is that kind of a struggle that is okay, it's a melodrama. By definition, if I actually only tell someone like these elements, it's like this is the definition of a melodrama. It couldn't be like clearer to be a melodrama. For me, the problem is not that it's a melodrama, is that it feels like they look at the deficiencies on the overall plot and they decide to look away from the perspective. It's like, it's beautiful. And it's true. And it is, it is, but it's a bit more of a. I understand that you can just play with the idea that he's a writer and where does the writing piece ends and where the reality starts. It's true that you could play with that, but they never really doubled down on that. It's like, for example, I like the scene that at the beginning she says that she's from Monaco when she arrives at the island, Malta. And that she's from Malta, and then like way later. We see that in the past when he was writing the novel and he was like narrating the story of Elena in the island, he was saying like, oh yeah, she used to just lie that she was from Malta when she was in the island, and it's like she's like portraying Elena when she's in the island, but Elena is also in the island. So is that there are like many layers, as you were saying, is like it's hard to actually just wrap your head around all the elements, but they're not as deep as they could be. It's like I almost feel like the most beautiful part or the most like defining part of this movie is the tale that Lorenzo is telling to Luna about like almost like encapsulating like the message of this movie too. That is like, oh, you may be an unhappy point at the end, but you may fall by a hole and then you can actually just come back with whatever you need. And it's And it's what happened to Lucia. That is that he still loves Lorenzo. Lorenzo shows up magically.
And this is what you were telling me, I think, before we started recording, is that after Lovers and the Arctic Circle, well, why don't you tell it? He wanted to take that film where it ended and do what?
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, as I was saying earlier about like these, there are star-crossed lovers in the lovers of the Arctic Circle that they are never going to be like meeting again, and we know that. I mean, we know that it's going to be like a tragedy, like a classic tragedy, and he felt like the ending was like pretty sad, and he wanted to us hopeless. Yeah. And I think the hopeless actually just goes there. It's like he wanted to start a movie that starts exactly from the same point. It's like you don't need to. No character actually just correlates here. Is that they're like completely different story, but he wanted to start from a hopeless place and just take them healing in some kind of way. With the tales that Lorenzo is telling. With the island per se, we just driving each other closer, getting to a better spot. Getting to a spot that they can actually just look forward, because actually Elena, after losing her daughter, she says multiple times, I cannot cry for her, because she feels like she never had like the closure about like just meeting the father again and just telling him that. Now I think that is like pretty beautiful when Najwa Nimri like Elena hugging Lorenzo starts crying at that point. That is okay, now it's you are completing that story, but at the same time, it's like you already know that Lorenzo was probably there when your daughter got mangled by a dog, and you're not wondering about like what that guy was doing there, because that's pretty creepy. That the father that you had never seen, instead of actually just reaching out to you, he would actually stalk your daughter.
Yeah, there was a lot of very creepy and disturbing things happening in this movie. Like the mixing of Belen, and the incestuous kind of arousal she had with her mother as a pornography actress, and then kind of implying that was happening with Luna. It's...
What?
Do you remember when Lorenzo is writing the story and he's writing the erotic fantasies of Belen with her mother, and then it moves to a scene where it's Belen, Lorenzo, and Luna, and he's still describing the sexual scenes between Belen's mother, and it's like...
Oh, okay, good. I didn't read it like that at the point. I thought that it was a bit more like now I'm going to be like anchoring back to reality,
And it probably was, but it made me uncomfortable how that scene happened. And I was like, what am I supposed to infer here?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I didn't read it like that, but I wanted to ask you something. Is like this movie is like pretty explicit from the sexual part,
Extremely explicit for Americans. Extremely explicit.
Yeah, but I don't think that it's as explicit as Love.
That's true, but that's also a French film. For Americans, this is like blows our puritanical minds. Like, you can't show an erection on screen. What is this, pornography?
Okay. So what I was going to be asking you is like, which one do you think that is more gratuitous? Love of this or this?
Absolutely, Love is more gratuitous. This felt... It reminded me of when I met my husband, and just everything is so erotic and you want to have sex all the time. Yeah. And it wasn't just like showing sex to arouse you. It was like, hey, this is a brand new relationship. They're having an incredible time. They're connecting in a way that's sexual, but it's not like, hey, let's just show some woman's tits so we can sell tickets to the movie theater.
Yeah, that's interesting, because from my perspective, it's like when he's talking with his agent, publisher, whatever.
Pepe?
The what?
Pepe.
Wow, I'm impressed that you memorize all the names. No, he's talking with Pepe, and I'm pretty sure that bar is pretty close to where I used to live in Madrid, but that's a different topic. So when he's talking with him, Pepe is telling him, just write that story that when you were on the island and you met that girl, and you guys had amazing sex. Say that just add as more sex as you can, because that sells.
Which, understanding that the director wrote this script, I was like, okay, you're putting this in, like, we get it. This is very meta.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to tell you. It's like a part of that, actually, after we watch adaptation not too far ago, part of it feels like that. I'm not talking about like this autobiographical, but it feels a bit more about like the kind of, I'm going to be like coming with the story and then I'm going to be like playing God with them, because the idea about like all of them like being so connected, it feels like, is it really needed, or is it actually just like writer's blocker and just trying to, and not all of them are connected. That's it.
So that very well may be the case. I'm not saying it's not, but the amount of explicit nudity and sexuality in the film, it genuinely didn't feel to me like too much or out of place. I just felt this is very natural. This is how a new passionate relationship starts.
It's gonna be, yeah, and that's the funny thing that is for me, when I watched it the first time, like back then, I felt it's like, wow, this is pretty risque, but at the same time, it's organic. It's a bit more, it's like, okay, if you are meeting someone, everything's going to be about the sex, and they don't do anything like BDSM or any kind of role play that people would still feel like that's weird. It's like what they do is like completely normal.
It's what everybody does.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they take the Polaroid pictures and then just showing it to each other on the street. It will be a bit weird, you know. But
I also found that that scene particularly, there's no words spoken. It's just the two of them sitting opposite of a very like busy street where they're sitting at a table and they just take turns showing each other the very explicit Polaroids they take. I've done that, and it just felt so true.
Yeah, and it's a hot thing that you could do about like, you know, like just arousing each other. And they actually end up like just asking, oh, would you do a striptease? And she actually removes her panties on the table. So I don't know. I mean, the other thing is I cannot be completely objective because these movies are clearly shot in Madrid. There are like so many places that I know there are small places that is like, God, I know where it is. I love that place. You know, it's like I can actually just imagine like a couple like starting and just going to all these places because it's what every person like living in Madrid would do. But
it's like when we watch San Andreas and we're like, oh, I go to that.
Exactly. But it wouldn't be like when we watch Looking, because at that point we would say like, no, that's not next to this other place. Like, fuck you, HBO. What did you think? So I think that the sex component for 2001, I almost felt like when I was reading, you know, like when I was seeing like the title, you know, on Big, that in Spanish is Lucia y el Sexo, but here is Sex and Lucia, is like, it almost feels like the sex part on the title was almost for selling tickets, because it's not about like the sexual component, it's about like the journey of this character.
Well, I was reading a little bit about that, and when Julio Medem wrote the script, it was supposed to be 2 chapters. One is sex, and the next is being about Lucia. That's where it came from, is their sexual experience with him and then just focusing on her. But yes, I agree. I think that the title is extremely incendiary. Yeah. And I watch risque films, and I never watched this film for whatever reason. Maybe because I did think at the time that it was more gratuitous, just meant to arouse, than storytelling, and which it's not. I was misled by the title, but I think you're right. Yes, it was put in the title because that sells.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it does sells, but it also just prepares people about like, look, if you're a really Puritan person, don't come to watch this, because the lovers of the Arctic Circle didn't have like too much sex, but a room in Rome is completely full with sex, like explicit sex. I think that the main cover or the poster, they're like 2 naked women. Right.
That won't fly in America, man.
Yep.
We've got God and guns, so we don't need to...
Sadly, we don't have to put up with this.
I want to go back to the writing aspect, because of what you told me between the lovers of the Arctic Circle and him wanting to move forward from that point of hopelessness. And then in this film, there's what I think is kind of a cheap plot device where he's like, oh, if there's ever a sad end to a story, no problem, we'll just start the story over. My question to you is, because of Atonement, where Bryony was trying to find a way to make the lives of the people she ruined, give them kind of some sort of like, happiness.
Yeah.
Do you think that Julio... I keep saying Julio Medem was trying to like atone for the pain that he put his characters through, and he's like, oh well, I'm gonna give them this like happy ending, even though everything is still tragic. We're just gonna pretend.
Yeah. I think there is a side of that is like, I'm going to still just make them suffer for the first 2 acts, because the first act is like when Lorenzo actually just goes into a coma, and the second act is like when Luna dies. But I'm going to just redeem them. I'm going to redeem myself through giving them.
Yes, exactly. You're going to watch this beautiful little girl get mauled by a Rottweiler, but at the end we're going to show her happy on a beach. It's fine. Don't worry.
We don't see that. We don't see that.
It's true.
You know, it's like that's the part that I feel like really piece. I mean, I don't want to see like a little girl like being mangled by a Rottweiler, but it felt like really confusing to me about like, wait, did he die here? Like trying to remember, is it what's that? And then later she actually says like Najwa, well Elena, she actually says, oh yeah, you know, is that my daughter got like just killed by the dog. But it's like until then there is no like just looking at the camera and say like this is what happened, because we don't see the daughter. Is that we see like the dog jumping from, and then what we see is the daughter like just falling through the hole in the island and then just swimming.
But then you also see Belen, who is completely
devastated,
and that was incredible. Like her acting is good.
Yeah, her acting actually reminded me of awkward scenes from David Lynch movies.
Laura Dern, Wild at Heart.
No, not Laura Dern. I mean, I don't think that Belen could be a 35-year-old, you know. But you know, like for example, on Mulholland Drive, when they go like to the back of the diner and they see the guys, and there's like just heart attack scene, that sort of thing. Or for example, the girl when they go to the Silencio club, and she started like just melting down. Is that was the kind of disturbing horror that she's going through. Is that I agree with you? Is that scene where she's like just melting down against the corner is like it's so out of character and at the same time so believable that it's like pretty shocking. But we still don't know what happened because it tries to be like really poetic. Like, no,
that's why when earlier when I said that I liked the acting, it was for those specific moments. Like there are moments that completely shine in terms of acting performance.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's at the point that now when Nimri starts crying, it feels like super heartfelt. It feels like authentic. About like I haven't cried for a couple of years or whatever it was, like the time that they have. It's like, and now I'm breaking down. And like
when she hugs Lorenzo on the island, that was another moment that I was like, this is incredible.
Yep. But every single time that Pat Vega, that is the girl that plays Lucia, is on the screen, is super on the acting. Is that she actually detracts from everyone else that is around her. It's like she just is like a vampire, like an acting vampire. It's like nope. It's like I have zero skill, so I need to actually just suck everything that you guys are putting.
I don't agree with you completely. Didn't you feel like when she was completely in love with Lorenzo and they were doing the erotic games, which aren't super erotic, but like when she did the striptease in the apartment, like I felt like I could believe that.
Okay, but we are comparing.
Just people listening literally put his hands to his face because he can't stand.
We are comparing. I want to keep this. We are comparing like a woman like doing like a sexy dance for just arousing her supposed boyfriend with a woman that is being devastated because she saw a kid getting mangled by a Rottweiler, and another woman that she actually ends up accepting the death of her daughter. We're comparing like these three acting. It's like it's yeah, sure, you know, it's believable, it's playful, you know, but it's like at the same time it's like it's a pinball hole.
I see what you say.
I know. Sorry, give me just 1 second. Is that Pat Vega was famous because she was like one of the main actors for a couple of seasons of a very popular sitcom in Spain. You know, that it was like a guy that comes back from a coma after 20 years, and she was like the childhood girlfriend of the guy, and I was like just trying to be there for him, and she was like just a bimbo.
And that's a sitcom? That sounds very heavy for a sitcom.
It was not bad, and there were plenty. Most of the actors that they were there, they were actually just became like really big figures. Like for example, Pepe, he was also there on that TV show.
Pepe, I thought was very big sore spots in the talent of the
Look, for me, it was like you are completely out of place. It's that you are not developed or anything. It's at the point that he actually says like, hey, by the way, my sister has a friend that is a nurse, and she actually just gave her, when she actually tries to put it in this kind of sleazy way about like, oh yeah, you have a daughter, that is like what actually just triggers the rest of the story. It feels like
You are despicable. You're
disgusting. But you're disgusting, but it's like you are supposed to be his friend, and there is nothing. You're not trying to get anything out of this. It's like, why you're just telling him on this kind of way? Everything feels like just pretty weird on that scene and with that character.
So, that scene that you just mentioned, those are the scenes, and there are many of them, that made me feel like this is slightly elevated, but it's melodrama. The fact that these three characters, Elena, Lucia, and Carlos, end up at the same guest house on the beach, it's just completely absurd. And I think that Medem, who wrote the script, knew that he doesn't have the writing skills, and that's why he introduced the, like, oh, we're going to play with, like, literary narration, so some of this is imagined, some of it's not real. And I'm of the opinion that, after watching 2 of his films, that he is a talented director, but he should not be writing his own scripts.
Let me just say something, because now I'm curious if he actually wrote The Lovers. Yeah, he wrote The Lovers of the Arctic Circle, but it's a bit more of a straightforward kind of movie. I bet there are like time jumps, you know, like just forward. I think that is more understandable, more like just face value. Now, you brought it up earlier, and I think that a part of the narrative from this movie, it could be taken. I'm not saying that it's like the correct kind of read, but it could be taking a bit more of Julio Medem, like on a meta level, about like Julio Medem, like looking at the audience, and it's like, so after all this drama that I presented, you know, is that do you want a happy ending? I can give you a happy ending, but it's going to be like completely fake. Because we never have like resolution about like why Carlos, Antonio, whatever it's called, like Elena and her mother's boyfriend, is that we never know why the police is just chasing him down. Is that there is no
Did they actually
resolution?
commit suicide? Did they not? It's unclear, because I don't think it's important whether or not they killed themselves. What's important is he ended up in this guest house.
We don't even know if they killed themselves. We only know that Lorenzo wrote that.
Well, I mean, you see them with their wrists slit. That's not exactly how people murder others.
But who is seeing that is Lorenzo, and that's his fantasy.
Yeah, well, yes, agreed. Yeah. And that's why I think that there's a little bit, more than a little bit, there are a lot of cheap tricks in here that make it so the writer and director aren't accountable for anything in the story, even though it's a compelling story.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I think that they actually just play with a writer game, you know, about like Lorenzo is also a writer, and he also created worlds of his own. And it's like Lucia is not in love really with Lorenzo as a person. Lucia is in love with his writing. Because she actually declares her love to Lorenzo before speaking with him for the first time.
Yeah, oh, you're right. And again, because we just watched Atonement, I see the power of what you can do with this idea, like writing and fiction and what you can do. And when you compare it to this, it's like, oh, he had sexual fantasies about his daughter's au pair, and then they didn't have to make any sense in the plot.
True, sure, I agree with that. But it's like at the same time, it's like I think that Atonement is that the writing is from outside. You know, I think that this is closer to adaptation, but without like giving the names. I had the feeling that Julio Medem is actually Lorenzo, and he
I feel it's autobiographical in terms, not necessarily of what he experienced, but who he feels he is. Yeah,
and I think that it's like a bit more like just driving the story himself. You know, and it's like talking about you, thank you so much. I love like your point of, you know, like your point of views, because it's actually elevating it a bit more. I'm not, when we get to the score, it's like we were like just going over it. It's like I'm not thinking that it's perfect. I think that is flawed, like pretty flawed, because the sex is not really needed if you were going to be like doing a story that it was going to be like so meta. That is about like, look, what about if you could actually just have like tragedies on your life that you could write off and just write everyone like a happy person? He said that would be amazing, and that's actually what he's doing on this movie.
But if it's not autobiographical, then his literary agent telling him to add sex, he can still think that he's an important writer, but he has people around him saying, "Had a bunch of sex, so it sells." Like, it all makes sense. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, because the thing is, I had like a movie that it was popular or whatever I wrote before, a script or or a novel, and now I'm going to have like second thoughts because I am blocked. I don't know exactly where to move from this. Because as Lucia says to him, is that your previous book, your first book, it was a tragedy. Everything didn't work out. Nothing worked out. So it's like from that perspective, exactly. It's like that's exactly what I was expecting here. And I said, well, I want something different. So I think that he's reflecting on himself too. And he's reflecting about like people love the movie. It's like Lucia is not about like that character, like pretty poorly acted. It's a bit more about like the society looking up to him about like we knew your previous works, but we ignored it. It's like the one that they actually stick with us. It was the Lovers of the Arctic Circle.
And she's disappointed when she reads his new novel and it's not a tragedy, and she's
exactly.
Like, it could be okay. So he was like, I can't give people like something happy, so I'm going to give them something fictionally happy, but realistically tragic.
Well, what he actually ends up is like, okay, I'm going to be like giving you a tragedy. I'm going to be like giving you the tragedy that you want. But it's like at the end, exactly. But at the end, is like I want to give you some kind of resolution. So honestly, I may be wrong and I may be like just overreaching here. I think that it's smarter than it looks. I think that it doesn't work. I think that it doesn't work. Like it doesn't like close like the loop completely. But I think that he. So, for example, is that when I think about adaptation, I think that Charles Kaufman, he did probably like 100 passes of the script, 100 or more. About like, okay, now this is ready to record. Like, no, let's give it like one more try, and let's actually just add like one more layer to it. I think that Julio Medem, probably he didn't do like those many passes, but there are like way more passes than what it looks like.
I would buy that. Yeah, and I agree. Based on this conversation, I think there's more here, but it's very postmodern. And I hate that phrase, but without understanding the things that you've shared with me about his previous film and understanding who the director is and what he's saying about himself, if you take this film at face value, which I feel like I did because I don't know the history of Spanish, it's not exceptional, but when you break it down in a conversation, yeah, there's a lot here.
That's the funny thing is that when we started talking today before I started recording the podcast, I asked you remember this film because I had the feeling that, okay, this is not like Star Wars and the Empire Strikes Back. That is like, if you watch the Empire Strikes Back, it's like, what the fuck is going on? Who are these people? But it's a bit more of pretty clear that he was expecting people to have watched the previous film and just having this as a, oh my God, are you going to be like torturing me with lovers that they cannot get close to each other? And at the end, not giving me anything, almost like just I don't know, like stabbing me on my heart and just turning around. It's like, maybe he starts the movie with a maybe I'm going to do that. Let's see. But then actually he just changed his mind. He's like, I want to give you something different, but I want to use the same formula. He's like, I can do other stuff because he actually came from Do Earth, that is a completely different story from this. He's like, he actually decided to just reuse some of the elements for actually just playing with the audience. And I think that that's smart. It's like, it's a bit more that all my movies have been different up to this point, is that there are still dramas, but they are not dramas of star-crossed lovers. It's that only these two. And it's like, I know that I want to do this kind of spiritual sequel. And I think that is like, it resolves, if you actually watch the other movie, like recently, or you remember what the other movie was about, is that you can connect it in a bit more of a heartfelt way than actually just analyzing it as a single unit.
Well, now you're making me want to rewatch that movie.
Maybe I will make you watch it.
So, let's get to the questions.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is something artistic in terms of direction in this film?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot. And it pains me sometimes because it's like, I always think about this friend of mine from college telling me about like the wallpapers, and it's like,
you're absolutely right. Is that there's like so many scenes that I could actually just take as a screenshot and just say like, this is gorgeous. You know,
Absolutely.
I was telling you about like my DVD had like a very weird quality to it. I would like to see like more definition when she's on the island, because it's pretty clear they were using a lot of filters for just making it look even more impressive.
Pretty sure I rented it on Amazon, and it looked pretty good.
Mm.
I enjoyed all of the scenes on the island. They were like stripped of color. Everything is very like sparse. The not gravel, but the rocky beaches of the Mediterranean. It's just stunning.
Yeah. Do you think that there is something artistic about it then?
Yeah, I do. I think there were a lot of very interesting scenes, a lot of interesting shots. The sex, I thought that it was incredibly well shot. It felt authentic. You used the word organic, which I hadn't thought of, but I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I told you, I think he's a strong director. I don't think he's a strong writer.
I had to watch because checking the artist of the lovers of the Arctic Circle, he also wrote that script, and I wonder if he's still doing that. If he's still like just writing, you know, like his scripts, his movies, the movie, yeah, and he's still doing it. He's still adapting them. So just say that he didn't learn the reason.
Well, let's say that I found this film interesting enough to want to watch more of his films.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because I was thinking about like I would like to watch like the modern day. So, do you think that you could remember this movie?
I think so. I think that because it's, when I say convoluted, that sounds like a criticism. Maybe complex is the right word, because there's a complexity that I even had a hard time giving a synopsis the same day that I watched it. I'm probably going to lose a lot in terms of story, but I'll remember ultimately this film, yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember most of it. You know, there are like some scenes that is like, of course, I have forgotten, but overall, it's not that it's a memorable and forgettable kind of show about like, okay, if I'm going to be on my dying bed, I'm going to remember everything about this. So
remember when I watched Sex and Lucia?
It's not that, but it's like, it's something that if someone asks me, I'm going to be like just thinking for a second. It's like, okay, I remember like the core elements. I'm like, okay, I remember that Lorenzo had an affair, had sex with Elena, then they had a baby, but he doesn't know. So it's true that the elements are going to be like resonating in the future. Maybe not for example, I think that the guy that is in between the mother and the daughter, I don't think that I can remember that.
No, he was forgettable.
Yeah. So, would you recommend this?
Yeah, I think I would. I liked the movie. I think it's interesting. As you said before, very flawed, but it's interesting. So yes. 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 I would recommend it, but it's probably my problem is like, as I love so much The Lovers of the Arctic Circle, I would recommend that and this. I would recommend let's say one pair, kind of, okay, let's just watch it on this order, and you're going to be like enjoying it more. I think the question in this film is, would you tell people not to watch it? No. If someone was interested, I would be like, yeah, go for it. It's kind of interesting.
Sure, but there is also the component about like, if someone asks you, could you recommend me a movie from Spain? Not in Spanish, I'm just making like the differentiation here. But like, would you recommend me a movie from Spain? Would you recommend this? And please don't tell me I'm so excited, because it also has Javier Camera on it.
No, if someone asked me for a recommendation from Spain, I would say The Skin I Lived In.
Belén is on it.
Is that? Oh, that is her.
That is her. Yep.
No,
and
so
this, and this was shot like The Skin I Live In is 10 years after Sex and Lucia.
Wow.
And she still looks the same age.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So would you still recommend it to someone if someone asks you about like a movie from Spain? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are several others that I would recommend from Spain, but this one I would be like, hey, this isn't perfect, but it's interesting and it shows Spain very beautifully.
Yeah. Do you think that this is a timeless piece?
So I was thinking about this question all day today. The only part that rubbed me super the wrong way was the 1994 chat rooms that apparently Elena sat on while she cooked. I was like, this is such a weak plot device that I just couldn't buy it.
They were huge in Spain in the 2000. Huge. Okay. Huge.
But being huge in one specific geographical location makes it not timeless. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I agree with you completely, because it's like, from my perspective, it's like, I think that I told you this, but if a movie could change dramatically if we had mobile phones, it's timely. I mean, I know that it's not completely the definition, but it's like if someone could actually just reach Lucia 30 minutes later, was on a plane, just going to the island, and just like, hey, by the way, your boyfriend is still alive, he's in a coma, the whole movie would have gone away.
But I think that this question is almost two questions. Is this film dated, and is this film timely? Because the themes of this film of sexuality and mistakes and misery and sadness, they are timeless.
Yeah.
But there are dated pieces of it.
Yeah. So basically what you're asking is this the Lost Boys?
Yeah. Are we going to have to deal with the intense culture of a very small set of years?
Yep. Is this from the 85s? 85 or 87? Yeah, no, it's not. No, and I think
it's somewhere in between. It's both it was timely, and there are timeless themes.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's completely true. It's okay, the motivation or the MacGuffin, it may be timely, but the topics that it actually talks about, they're timeless. And it's people would still react to the loss of a very close person, because I also love that they have been dating for 6 years and they're not married or anything. Is that they're just dating for 6 years. That is how do you react to that? Or just loving someone so close, and you try to reconnect with what was important for him. Because that's completely timeless, I think. The grieving period. Yeah. And how she's actually just being aroused by the biggest dick that they have in the island, and she's I'm not ready for that. I'm sorry. So the last question that we have is would you turn it into a TV show?
Absolutely not. I mean, if he tried to suss out any other ideas, half-thought plot devices, this film worked for me as a film. I don't care to watch 8 hours of this.
Let me ask you something. Would you turn Mulholland Drive into a TV show as it was originally intended?
Yes, because I 100% trust David Lynch, even if he doesn't succeed, to attempt to give me something interesting.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's completely fair. I agree with that. I had a feeling that this is a movie that it only works because there is a cohesion at the end. There is some kind of resolution at the end.
Yeah, if they had tried to break this up even into the two chapters I read about, it's I wouldn't care to watch chapter 2 after chapter 1.
Yeah, it would be like Nymphomaniac, basically.
To be fair, I watched both of those and own Nymphomaniac Part 2, so...
Well, yeah, you own it because I gave it to you.
You did. You gave it to me as a birthday. Yeah.
So, what did you score?
I've gone all over with this score. I think ultimately I will give it a 7.5.
Okay. My score, after a conversation, I bumped it. For me, it's a 7.
All right.
Yeah. So, any kind of closing remarks from you before I give mine?
Well, I think you and I share a love for films that attempt to do something, and even if they fail, it doesn't matter. It was more interesting than normal. So for me, 5 is completely mediocre. 10 is, I don't know. What is it?
La Aventura.
La Aventura. This is right in the middle. It didn't work all the time, but it compelled me.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful.
Yeah. I have to say that it's for me, this conversation has been a confirmation of why I love to talk about cinema with you so much. Because it actually was a bit more of a reinforcement about that you can look beyond what you see. and just try to figure it out, like what they were intending, instead of just taking it for face value. Because my original score was going to be like a 6.5. About like, it's cool, it was nice, but it's like when we started talking about like the meta aspects of the movie, about like what he could be like just thinking about like what we're taking about face value and what is not, I think that it actually just elevated into a film that I recommend to anyone. If I had to score the lovers of the artist circle, probably would be like an 8 or an 8.5, but I know there is more melodrama than this, even more melodrama.
So first off, thank you for the compliment. And second off, this conversation increased my score substantially.
May I ask what was your original score?
6.5. I mean, so it's only 1 point,
Okay.
but it convinced me there's more here than I thought, and I appreciate your Spanishness explaining it to me.
Yeah, I know when I told you like the worms, so like the waters of the Mediterranean are worms, that changed your score completely.
We're
That
going to have
changed
to watch
everything.
there so you can explain to me why that's worth my time.
I know what is the next movie that I'm recommending. But in any case, the next pick is yours. What are you recommending?
We are going to watch Gosford Park by Robert Altman.
Another, Robert Altman movie after Shortcuts.
But for me personally, I've only seen 2 of his films, not including Gosford Park, so
What was the other
Exciting.
one that you watched after Shortcuts?
Nashville.
The TV show?
No, it was a movie that won a ton of Academy Awards.
It's from the
Like
70s, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. We'll check it out. Okay, cool, man. I mean, I'm really excited to just watch another one. I don't know if it will be like so impactful after watching Circus, but I'm looking forward to discuss it.
At least it's 2.5 hours, so you're welcome. Merry Christmas.
Okay, well, yeah, I know what to do on my Christmas week that I'm working. And to those 5-6 people that are still listening to us, thank you from all our hearts.
And wash your hands and shelter in place.
Bye.